So the introduction I asked for was, here's Johnny. And we'll go with that. So I'll talk about surveys, but first I need to share a story, a personal story that happened this Sunday. Some of you have seen that. If you're not following me on Facebook, you can go and see the video. If you are following me on Facebook, I'm sorry that I represent 60% of what you see on Facebook. But here is a moment in time. This is my daughter. She's crying. This happened this Sunday. Here's the story. She was a gymnast for 14 years until now. This is the end of her gymnastics career because she's graduating next month. I'm actually going to give her her diploma because I serve on the Plano ISD Board of Trustees. So I'm going to give her a diploma. But this was it. For 14 years, every time she competed in every competition there was. And at the end, there's the state meet. And everybody can just sign up and compete in the state meet. But you have to qualify to the regional meet. The regional meet has, I believe, 7 states that come in here or wherever it is. This time it was in Texas. And she asked whether we're going to go to the regional meet. And the thing is, she tried to qualify and she never qualified. So we only paid for her gymnastics through the state meet. And sure enough, in the state meet, she qualified to the regional. So we paid for the rest of the month and we went to the regional, which was this Sunday. Now, Maya, of all the 4 events, floor is the one that she likes the best. She's graceful. She is so smooth. She's having fun when she's doing that because you can see that she's smiling. And it's really great to see it. And I always liked seeing her floor routine that changed over the years, obviously, as she went up. Well, we're in regional. So first of all, you have to qualify to be here. So the others are not rookies. The others have qualified. The others are coming from 7 states. And there's 120 of them, 20 in her division. And she comes to me right before floor and she says, Daddy, if I wanted to get a gold medal, and she has gotten gold medals in the past. Of course, maximum was in state, but in state this year, she got 7th place. And she said, Daddy, if I wanted to get a gold on this one, I have to get better than 9.85 because there was already a 9.825. So I have to be better than 9.85, which is a score she never got before. What you see here is Maya sitting on the floor, crying after finishing her routine, in which she got 9.925 and the gold medal. And it was the gold medal not only for her division, it was for the entire 7 states in her division. So I'm a proud daddy, and that's what I wanted to share with you. Now I'm going to tell you another story. A story that goes to my PhD doctoral. By the way, the image is not just wide. This is me before. So I'm going to sell a book here. Actually, I'm not selling it. This is a proof copy. But worst diet ever. And the reason I wrote this is because first I looked like this, and now I look like the way I do. And it was a diet that I decided on doing. But that's not the story. The story is back in when I was still doing coursework for my doctoral degree. When I was doing coursework, one day I got a call from the advisor. And the advisor said, do you need help registering for the next semester? And I said, no, I already registered. I'm registered for the next semester. He said, you know, you really need to start thinking about what your dissertation topic is going to be. And I said, I already know what my dissertation topic is going to be. And he said, then you need to maybe think about what methodology you're going to use. And I don't understand where this is going. I mean, I'm registered, I'm all good. And I said, I know what I'm doing. I know what methodology I'm going to use. I'm registered for the next class. What's on your mind? And he goes, okay, let me be blunt. You signed up for both quantitative and qualitative research classes. You got to decide, are you going to do a quantitative or qualitative dissertation? And I said, oh, you don't understand. I'm going to do a qualitative dissertation, but while I'm here, I want to learn every piece of research that's available, because once I'm done, I don't want to look back and say, well, all I know is qualitative research. I don't know how to do quantitative research. So I took every research class the university had. And so my specialization It was not on leadership, was not on anything. I would say it was on research. I know how to research, including survey methods. And I've used a lot of survey methods. So this actually is the graduation ceremony. One more short story that I want to tell you is when I worked on my dissertation committee chair, Dr. Kaman, who became a friend, he was my sounding board. We really complimented each other on the work. And as I progressed through everything, when I was done, I finished writing chapter 5, and the dissertation has 5 chapters. So I was done writing it, and we spoke on Sunday, and I told him, I'm done, but I'm not ready to send it to you. Give me another week just to go over it and see if I want to make any final changes. I'm going to send it to you next weekend. Monday night, he went to sleep, and he didn't wake up Tuesday morning. He passed away, and this dedication is actually the dedication that my dissertation has. Okay, now let's talk about what I'm going to talk about. So I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to tell you what I told you. Why do we use surveys? I'll talk about how you develop a survey. What are the options that you have, different tools that you have, you know, SurveyMonkey and others. And I'm going to focus on one, Google Forms. That's the one that I use. How do you collect inputs and how do you analyze the responses? Would that work for you if I go over this? Yeah. And I'll make it interesting. And oh, by the way, there are going to be 2 squirrels along the way. We'll get there. Why surveys? One example is building a mailing list. If you want to build a mailing list, you want to have some kind of survey form, some kind of a form on your website that allows, or even on emails that you send, that allows you to collect email addresses. So somebody responds to it, this is my name, I'm letting you add me to your mailing list, and that's how you do it. Another one, you're about to give a keynote. There are certain questions that you have. How about creating a survey and sending that link and saying, why don't you fill that survey? I'm going to know what you want me to talk about, or I'm going to get a sense of who the audience is, how big the audience is. I can ask questions about audiovisual equipment and everything else. Collect post-keynote feedback or post-training feedback. So you have already noticed that I've done that with you the last time that I gave a talk. I had this survey, and many of you filled the survey, and I got my feedback through that. It's a lot easier than having forms. You can have a quiz. If you're teaching something, you have the ability to do a quiz. I'm going to actually talk a lot more about conducting primary research, because for all the rest, it's really just the mechanics of how you build the form. For this, there are a little more things that you need to know. And this class is not going to be about teaching you everything that I know about surveys and research methods, quantitative or qualitative. It's really going to be to give you the general tools. And one thing that I can tell you, as you know from the last time, I'm going to post this on our Facebook group. And anybody who's not on our Facebook group, or if you're having any trouble, you know how to reach me. Just let me know. I'll email it to you directly. Any other thoughts? Anybody knows why would we use surveys for any other purposes?
I have a need that I know that I need to know the
yes.
answer to. I have a distributor network, and I want to create something to where we can survey prospective clients to do like a business analysis, to start a discussion with them. Is that
yeah, definitely, okay. Definitely. I would put it, again, you'll see the mechanics. This is not one of those things where you need primary research, but yes, you can ask them any questions you'd like. And I'll show you how to use the tool, and I'm going to go through the mechanical part of it pretty quickly. But again, the slides are there, and you're going to see screenshots. Developing a survey. So the process of developing a survey starts with, first of all, what is it that I want to know? What do I want to know? Do I have a hypothesis that I want to confirm or reject? So one of the funny things is, if you're doing a doctoral research, you create a hypothesis and you're attempting to reject it. And so instead of saying, I proved my point, you say, I failed to reject it. I don't know why being so negative, but that's how it works. So do you have a hypothesis you're trying to prove or reject? Or is there just something that you want to know? And in some cases, it's going to be something that you want to know. You want to know some statistics about a certain population and so on. Now, always ask yourself, why would someone be willing to answer this? And I'll get back to that when I talk about how long the survey is, but why would someone be willing to answer? Shira, my younger daughter, that was Maya, my younger daughter, all of a sudden decided she's going to run a survey on learning methods or learning preferences. She did a survey with 3 questions. She sent it, and almost everybody she sent it to responded. Why? Because it took less than a minute to answer. So ask yourself, why would anyone be willing to respond? Develop questions and answers. That's a big part of it. How do you develop the questions? And in many cases, you're going to have multiple options, whether you can choose only one or you can choose multiple, but you have to develop the answers as well. You're going to build the survey. That's the mechanics. Do a pilot study. You don't want to throw the survey out there and then realize that you're not getting the right responses, and now you already burned some of your potential candidates or targets. Sample size, what kind of sample, and we'll talk about that. And safety. Now, safety sounds kind of weird. Why? What's safety associated with it? You may be asking questions to which the answers really better be confidential and better be saved only by you. So that's something that you need to be aware of. Once you're done with all of this and you've done your pilot study and it works well, or you tweaked it a little and now it works well, then you actually launch it and publish it. So now it's available and you reach your target audience, sample or census, and you get the results. At some point you close the survey, and when you close the survey, what you want to do is analyze and get the results, get the answers to your questions. Any questions so far? Yes?
When you're picking the people that you're going to send the survey to, you want a cross-section. How do you, are you going to get into?
I'll get there. I'll get there. Okay? What's in a survey? So what's the structure of the survey? Once we've started working on it, you will have a title, copyright. Make sure that you copyright your survey, because otherwise somebody else is going to just copy it and do their own. I have developed several instruments, primary research instruments. I don't want anybody else to get access to them, so I copyrighted it. Graphics if needed, description, important, describe what it is, instruction, very clear instructions, and I'll touch on that again a little later. Demographics part. So if you don't care, that's fine, but sometimes, and you know, especially this is one of those things where after the fact you're going to go, you know, I wish I knew how many were men and how many were women. I wish I knew how many were younger than 20, how many were older than 50. Well, that's a little late now if you didn't have a part like this in your survey. You can have different sections in the survey. It doesn't all have to just flow as one stream. The different questions. One thing that you can make the questions, you can make them mandatory or you can make them optional. So for example, in my surveys, in my feedback surveys, everything is optional. You answer, you don't, you don't. That's fine. Even if you gave me just one answer on the quality of the venue, you gave me something. Scales, and I'll talk about scales later in other types of data. So scales is when you say strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree, or something like this. I'll talk about that. And finally, in many cases, you're going to be anonymous, or the participants are going to remain anonymous. In some cases, you are going to ask for contact information, maybe for all surveys, maybe give them the option to provide. So for example, in my case, my feedback survey, you know that I give you the option, would you like to give me a testimonial that I can use? You check yes, and you'll see, if you checked yes, you'll get to the next section, and the next section will ask for your testimonial and will ask for your contact information and name. Any questions here? No. We're moving right along. The sample, you asked about the sample, Dave. So first of all, there's sample versus census. The difference is census, if you are my target population, census is I want to get it from all of you. Sample is I want to get it from a sample of you, assuming that we have a good representation. You want it to be as balanced as possible. So that again, think about the different men versus women and so on. And as you get the responses, start tracking this, and maybe at some point realize that I need to get more men to respond because I got so far 80-something% women. Different ages and so on, different types of companies, like in my surveys. Random versus selected. Do we just do random and whoever answers? Or do I actually select a population? And I'm going to tell you a story here. Plano ISD. We had just issued a bond last year for $481 million. Anybody here lives in Plano? Thank you. Thank you for your money. Actually, the state should thank, because a big part of it goes to the state of Texas, but I digress. So there was this idea that we're going to build a performing arts center that costs $68 million. Well, I wanted to see if people want to have a performing arts center. So I asked for us to have a survey. So they went out and they did a survey. Now, I warned them that, you have any idea what percentage of eligible voters, registered voters, actually vote in local elections? 5%, just about 5%. We actually had a pretty good election this year, earlier this month, with 14%. So not too many go and vote. And I told them, why don't you use the database of people who voted historically in local elections? Out of 190,000, that's just about 10,000 who voted in the majority of local elections. Get your sample from the 10,000, because those are the people that are most likely to go and vote. They didn't, and we got the response. And when we got the responses, I asked them, did you do that? They said no. I said, so how do you know that these are people who are likely to vote? And they said, because we asked them. We were smart. We thought about that. We asked them. And I said, so based on your asking them, what percentage goes to vote? And they came from out of town. They had no idea. So they said, based on our data, 54% will vote. I said, the number is 5%. So that causes a skew. Now, if you're targeting a very large population, there are rules, the numbers on what should your sample size be, but I'll tell you kind of the rule of thumb, 200. 200 is a good number. When you have a sample with a sample size of 200, to any size population, your margin of error is relatively small. It's about 4 to 5%. Return rate is important. How many of the surveys that you sent out are returned? This can be a cause for concern. If you're getting 5%, are the respondents skewed? And I'm going to tell you a story. Another story. What was his name? I don't remember his first name, but Landon versus FDR, 1936 elections. The literary digest poll was conducted to see who's going to be the president. They were accurate since 1916. They never failed to predict the winner. They predicted 57 to 43%. The actual number was 62% to 38%. So what was their margin of error? 5%, right?
5 points, 10%.
I'm sorry?
5 points.
Yeah.
Not 5%, 5 points.
So actually their margin of error was 19% because they predicted Landon wins the election by 57, where in reality FDR won with 62%. Their error was 19%. 19%. How did it happen?
Alf.
The what?
His first name is Alf. I voted for him.
Alfred. His first name was Alfred. We need to talk. Okay, so what happened? Here's something, and this is something to learn from, and it's not necessarily going to happen to you, not today, not this problem. Here's what happened. The way they conducted it was they used the telephone book and they called people over the telephone. Landon was the Republican candidate, FDR was the Democratic candidate. As it turns out, statistically, Republicans were better off financially than Democrats. Telephone had cost a lot of money. If you use the telephone as your tool, you are skewed towards Republicans. Not anymore, not today, but back in 1936 you were. So this is something to keep in mind. When you're collecting data, the people that you're reaching, the tools that you're using to reach, are you skewing your data as a result? Keep that in mind. Okay, I mentioned scales. There are different types of scales. So this one is very likely, somewhat likely, neutral, somewhat unlikely, very unlikely. There is strongly disagree to strongly agree. There is never, rarely, sometimes, often, always, and so on. There are different types, and really what you need to have is you need to have a question that fits what your scale is. Yes?
Isn't there something about that whatever answer you want to be on the left side of the scale as opposed to the right? Like if you want strongly agree, put strongly agree on the left as opposed to on the right?
So if I want a specific answer, put it on the left?
Yeah.
Didn't you sign the code of ethics for NSA? What you said is unethical, and I'm going to talk about how to avoid that. There is a bias. There is a bias towards that. You are right, but I'll tell you how to avoid that. And there is also another bias, but you'll see. First of all, there is how many steps are you going to put in the scale? Are you going to put 3, 4, 5, 7, and 10? So the first thing to think about is whether it's going to be an odd or an even number. And the reason for the odd or even is because you may not want to let them have the option of neutral. You may want to know, are you on this side, even if it's slightly, this side or that side? And you don't want to give them the option for neutral. Ask yourself, do I want to do that or not? Then the more you have, the more granularity you have, but the more items you have, the less probability that people will choose the extremes. People don't choose the extremes. You know, if you're putting 10 elements up there, it better be darn good for somebody to choose a 10 or terrible for somebody to choose 0. They will typically go 1, 9, or 2, 8, or something like that. So keep that in mind. There, as I mentioned, compatible question language, so make sure that you're asking a question to which these are the answers. It is pretty good, a good process to use the same scale across all the questions, even if you need to massage the questions so they will use the same answer, because it's easy for you to start answering and say, okay, I understand that my answers are going to be between very likely to very unlikely. And now I just go question after question and I mark them, and I don't need to read again what are the scales that I have for this next question. So you keep the same one. Consistent scales, that's what I just said. Give them the option for not applicable, don't know. There is actually don't want to answer. Could be another one. Positive and negative. I thought I had that. Interesting. Positive and negative. So you may want to have multiple items per question. So I want to know something, but I'm going to have multiple items that ask the same question in different ways. Sometimes people get annoyed with it because they go, didn't you already ask this? No, I asked it a little differently. To your point on the bias towards the left of the screen, what you do is you do positive and negative questions. So do you get a lot of autonomy in your company? Strongly agree, or the statement is, I get a lot of autonomy in my company, strongly agree, strongly disagree. Another question somewhere down the road is going to be, I don't get a lot of autonomy, strongly agree, strongly disagree, and this is how you balance that. In general, it is recommended, again, if you're going with research, if you're going with a survey that's going to have 50 to 70 questions and have about 20 minutes to fill, you may want to have multiple items per question. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast?
No.
Okay. How long? Speaking of going too fast, how long should it take? So the first question on how long should it take is, how important is it for me to answer this? You know, you just gave me a 72 question survey. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. Now, at the same time, we're going to consider you for employment. There is a survey we need you to fill. It may take 20 minutes. What do you think?
Yes.
Heck, let it take 2 hours. I'm still going to do it if you're going to employ me and you have a good job for me. So how important is it to the person, to the participant? Do you offer a prize? Now, prize is a little tricky, because when you offer a prize, sometimes there is a bias towards, I want to give you answers that I think you want to hear, and you don't want them to answer the way they think you want it answered. How many participants do you get? Have a survey with 72 questions. Good luck with participants. You know, a general survey. Under 1 minute, Shira's survey, my daughter's survey, 3 questions, simple questions. What is the type of learner you are? Are you visual, kinesthetic, and auditory? Thank you, that was the word. That was the first question. 2, do you think your school accommodates that? Yes or no? 3, would you like the school to accommodate that? Yes or no? Thank you for participating in my survey. She got 100 in like 2 hours, 100 participants. And then she analyzed the results, and believe it or not, she showed at the board meeting and presented her results to the board of trustees. I was very proud. Under 5 minutes is a good survey in general. You know, people would spend under 5 minutes. Make sure you tell them how long it's going to take. Because what you're going to have is people starting to fill the survey, stopping halfway going, I don't have time for this. I don't even know where I am. 20 minutes is if somebody is committed to this or somebody is instructed to fill the survey. Nobody is going to fill, or very few people are going to fill a 20-minute survey just to help you out. Instructions need to be very clear. You need to state how long is it going to take, why. Now, this is a little tricky. Why am I running this survey? Why am I doing this? What is it that I'm trying to find out? You need to be careful, because if you share too much, you may cause them to answer in a certain way. You may create a bias. So, you know, did I tell you the story of the Hawthorne experiments? The Hawthorne experiment was done in, I think it was 1939. And this was one of the earliest psychological surveys in organizational culture or climate. What they did was they went to a factory that was building relays. And they calculated how many relays did a group do in an hour or in a day. Then they took a group to another room where they reduced the lighting. They wanted to know what the effect of lighting is on production, on effectiveness. What do you think happened? Smaller number or higher number? Smaller, right? No, higher. It was a higher number. And you go, so my first conclusion is then less lighting increases production. How can that be? Well, here's what happened. The initial group that worked in regular lighting, they didn't tell them that they're being evaluated. The other group, they told them, we're going to evaluate your performance. We're going to put you in that room. They lowered the lighting. They knew they were being evaluated. They worked overtime. They worked really, really hard. That's what happens if you tell them sometimes what is it that you're trying to get at, because it will bias. It can cause bias. Anonymous or not anonymous, that do you need to know who filled the survey? If you do, you do, but just keep in mind that some people are not going to open up if you want to know who they are. So it's easier for people to open up, especially, you know, take feedback. When we get feedback on talks that we give, some people, you know, if you're going to ask for their names, you're going to get very high ratings, which maybe is what you want to see. But you want to know the reality. You want to know, before I get there, the definition of the word brand. What is my brand? You know what is my brand?
Innovation.
No, not me specifically. My brand is what people say about me when I'm not in the room. Okay, that's my brand. You want to know what your brand is? Make the surveys anonymous. Okay? Reward, I mentioned that. You can offer a reward, you're going to increase the number, but there is a risk of biasing them in that they're going to try and answer the way they think you want the answer. What the? Any idea why I have this? Double-barreled questions. Thank you very much. So let's talk about questions. The questions need to be linked to our goal. There should be no ambiguity in the question. Use very simple words. Avoid emotions or bias. Do you think it's great that your company does X or Y? Well, you just said what's good and what's bad. So you created bias through emotions. Multiple items per factor, I mentioned that, positive and negative, that's where I have this item. So ask the question in two different ways. Ask it in a positive way, ask it in a negative way. Ask it in enough times to make sure that you know what you're getting. Having kind of a rule of thumb, having 5, maybe 6 things that you want to know, and then having maybe 50 questions to address them. So now you're going to have about 8 to 10 items per real question that you want answered. Make sure that you cover all the possibilities of what the answer could be. And you'll be surprised. I still make mistakes in that. I didn't think about giving the not sure, I don't know, don't want to answer. No double-barreled questions. What's a double-barreled question? Anybody knows what it's a double-barreled question? Okay. How satisfied are you with your pay and job conditions? High, low? Well, it depends. You just had double-barreled question. You have 2 barrels there. I'm satisfied with my pay, not with the job conditions. How do I answer this? Should the government spend less money on military and more on education? Yes? No, should they spend more money on that? Never mind. Do you believe in green monsters? That's double-barreled. Why is it double-barreled? I do believe in monsters, not green ones. Okay. Next. Do you recognize?
No, that's you.
Who said that? Who's the first person to say that?
Me.
Yeah, no, it's not me. No, it's not me. The reason I have it here is because we're going to talk about the pilot study. So pilot study is what you do before you go wild and spread your survey to everybody. And then you find out that, oh, this survey doesn't work very well. First, test it yourself, even before you do the pilot study. Okay? First of all, take the survey and see what you find when you answer. What do you feel when you answer it? Then find people you trust. And the reason you find people you trust is because you want them not just to answer it, you want them to really give you good feedback on this. And they're going to tell you, this question, I wasn't so clear about this question, and that question, I felt I don't know what. Use people that you trust who represent the target population. I mean, if this is a survey that's made for people over the age of 50, if I'm taking my daughter to answer this, I'm not really getting good feedback on that survey. Ask for feedback, ask them to time it and see how long it took them. Maybe it takes you faster than it takes them, but you want to know on average what it takes them. Then interview them, ask them in person, ask them. So tell me about taking the survey, how long did it take, and so on. So sometimes you're going to hear things that you're not going to hear otherwise. Now, just to make sure not all pilots look like this. Some pilots look like this. Once again,
It's Tom Cruise.
before, no, yeah, thank you. Who said Tom Cruise?
You get a copy of the book?
Thank you. This is before the worst diet ever. So I still have 32 pounds over me over there, which puts some burden on the plane more than before. Actually, there's a funny story behind that picture. This is a pretty grim picture. I know I'm smiling here, but here's what's happening. It is Friday morning. Hurricane Rita just changed course and heading towards Tyler. I'm a pilot. I'm a mission pilot in the Civil Air Patrol, U.S. Air Force Auxiliary, and we found that not only the storm is heading there, but all the planes we had in Houston and Galveston are now stored in Tyler. We need to get them out of there, and we need to fly them to Dallas Love Field. We know that the weather is going to be pretty bad along the route, the route. And so we're taking pictures of ourselves before the flight. That picture is taken with somebody else's camera. I took his picture with my camera just in case we have a last picture. So this is a last picture in case something happens to me during Hurricane Rita. Nothing happened. It's other than I went into the wake turbulence of a 757 leaving Dallas Love Field. But I just went around and landed the second time. Okay, almost killed the landing gear. What are the options? What kind of tools are there? So I already mentioned that I swear by top 10 reviews. I always look at top 10 reviews. These are some of them. Survey Gizmo, Survey Monkey is number 2. Google Forms is actually not listed here because they don't consider it necessarily a survey tool, so they didn't have it there. And especially since there is no option to pay money. On each one of those, there is an option to pay money. There is a maximum amount of questions, maximum amount of participants. maximum amounts of surveys in a certain period of time, and beyond that you have to pay. On Google Docs, on Google Forms, there is no way to pay. You can have as many questions as you'd like, as many people as you'd like. So these are some of the ones that are used typically. SurveyMonkey, you're familiar with. Google Forms is the one that I'm using. Okay, and I'm going to show you, now we're going to go through the mechanics, and I'm going to go pretty quickly through the mechanics. But before I go through the mechanics, squirrel. I have some ADD, so I can't stay on the same topic for too long, so I'm going to have to make a small diversion. You remember last time I talked that I showed you a few tools to scan QR codes, and then I gave you a QR code and asked you to scan it, right? Now I'm going to show you how to create QR codes. So there is a tool. This is the link. Write the link. No, don't write the link. I told you I'm going to leave the presentation on Facebook, and I'm going to email it to you. You can go with a URL, a website, for your own website, or anything, any link that you would like. vCard text. If you do text, this is one of the coolest things. You can do text, then you're going to have a telephone number. What's the text? And when anybody scans this, their phone is going to send you a text. You can do email. What's the difference between text and SMS? I'm not sure, but never mind. All kinds of things. So I'm going to give you an example. This is one of my sites. This is, by the way, the sticker that's on the side of my car, on my Jeep. If you noticed, you saw a Jeep with a QR code on the door. People scan this, what is this? And they get to my website. So that's the, you got here, this is the website, this is the tool. It's a free tool. It downloads a JPEG, and you use it as much as you'd like. Okay. And this, for example, is the QR code for my website. That's what's on the side of my Jeep. So if you go ahead and scan it. Squirrel. Okay, I got two volunteers.
I left my phone in the car.
Doesn't it make you, no offense, but when I go without, I found Saturday morning, I went to, unfortunately, to a service, and I left my phone at home. I felt naked. I felt naked. I don't know how we use that.
Tell me to photograph that, right?
No, not photograph it. You have a QR code scanner?
You have to have the app. Yes.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Well,
Come on.
But I got that.
Here somewhere.
Oh, I do. I got it.
You got it last time when I talked.
That's right. Okay, I got it.
Scan it.
And it's loading. Okay, there we are. All right. And then
Did you get there?
what? Thank you.
You got to my website?
Yeah. Wow. I mean,
That's it. It's as simple as that. You put it, you leave it up there, and you can send people to your website. Okay, that was squirrel number one. There's going to be another squirrel. Back to surveys for now. Any questions so far on what we talked about?
The QR codes.
The QR codes.
They really haven't lived up to their potential, have
I'm happy with them.
they? But you used to.
What were you expecting them to do?
No, you just used to see a lot more of them. It seems like on doors to restaurants, on
Yep.
doors to stores, every ad in every magazine.
Yeah.
One. But they seem to be fewer and fewer.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I see quite a few.
There was some indication
Yep.
Let's take a survey.
CPC codes.
The barcodes?
Yeah, barcodes. But
Yep.
they
The thing is, QR code contains a lot more data than a barcode can. John?
Let's do a quick survey.
Quick survey.
QR codes, are they
Okay.
rising or falling?
You're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're staying. I think they're staying just about the same. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Google Forms. This is the mechanics. I'm just going to go pretty quickly. Really what I want to show you, I don't want to show you how to do it. I just want to show you what the features are. Okay, and again, the presentation is going to be available, and so you can just look at it slide by slide. So when I went to my Google Drive, you got a new, and under new there is more, and under more, one of the things is Google Forms. And so when I go there, immediately it says, enter your first question. What is the question? So you enter the question here, you decide what kind of question you want to have. Here, whether you want to show the description, go to the section based on answer. That's a cool thing. That's when I ask you in my feedback survey, if you're willing to put a testimonial. Based on your answer to that question, I would take you to the next section, which is requesting your testimonial and your name and email address. Or if you answer no, that is the end of the survey. Next, okay, that's what I was just talking about. Different types of questions. You can ask for a date, for a time. Multiple choice grid, that's something that I used in one of my surveys. Linear scale. Multiple choices I mentioned. Check boxes. The difference between multiple choices and check boxes is multiple choices you can only choose one. Check boxes you can choose as many as you like. Next part is, this is how you do a section break. This is the symbol for section break, and now you have a new section. And on this question you may want to have the flow will depend on the answer to the question. Why do I have this? I have no idea. It looks the same as before. So now after I'm writing one question, I can move on and create the next one. This one, the plus, would give you another question. T would give you the ability to do text. The next one will give you the ability to put some graphics. Check boxes, for example, you have multiple check boxes. Drop down, you're going to write what the options are, and when you click there, it's going to give you a list of options. Linear scale, 1 through 5, and you're going to label 1, label 5. You can actually label all of them if you'd like. Multiple choice grids, rows and columns. So I use multiple choices. On the columns, I had the strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And then on the rows, I had the questions, the different items. So it's a pretty easy way to do that, and then it's pretty concise. It looks pretty condensed. Date. There is a way, by the way, to just collect text. Just get text. Time. Under settings, so up there's settings. Under settings, some of the things you can do, you can collect email addresses, which means that they need to actually log in. It requires the sign in. You can limit them to one response. You can go in, if you have the link, you can go in and answer another one, and you may want to prevent that. So you can limit them, which requires them to sign in. You can let them edit after they submit. You can let them see, and sometimes you see that once you're done submitting yours, you can see what the results are so far. And that's another option that you have. Presentation mode, show the progress bar. So especially if you have multiple sections, you can see how far along are you. You're 10%, you're 20%, and so on. Shuffle the question order. That's especially for quizzes. So I can run a quiz, and if you're trying to see what's the answer to 2, is the answer to 2 C? Well, I don't know. Mine is a different order than yours. And you're sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
Yes?
When you're at a meeting and they're trying to get the surveys and show the results as the people are putting them in, what's the format, what's the setup that you've done to, you say, text yes to this number, and immediately on the screen I'm seeing a horizontal bar code that says...
Oh, that's something else. What they call it? Kahoot. You're talking about Kahoot and other things like that. That's something else. That's interactive response system. Yeah. Yeah, interactive polling. That's something else. These are surveys that are done offline. Next, you can make it a quiz and release the grade immediately, and you can grade them. You can let them see the missed questions and so on. Point values, decide on the point values and so on. So you have that option if you want to do a quiz. Up there, a few other options that you have. When it's time for you to send it, then one of the cool, so you can add collaborators, you can create a script, so you can take this and embed it in your website. One of the cool things is, I'll get back to it. For mailing, actually, I'll get back to it with an example of a real survey. Mailing list, for example, would be something like this: first name, last name, email address. That's as simple as that. Note that all of them are short answer text, nothing else.
When you do that on Google Forms,
Yep.
does it save it all so that you could do like a mass
Yeah, I'll show you. So if you did that, the next thing you need to do is just send it. And you'll see what happens when you send it. One thing that you may want to do, for example, for a mailing list, add a source. And in parentheses, you can say, please do not modify this field. So for example, I created a survey for today's session. And there is a field there that I'm asking again, please do not change that field. And that field is a special code for this survey. Why? So I can separate the answers to this survey. I'm still using the same form, but I can separate the answers to this survey from previous surveys or future surveys. Okay? And again, it's a short answer and so on. And I'll show you how to do that as well. Let's talk about collecting the inputs. Okay? How are we doing in time? When do you want to have the break?
About 8.
About 8? Okay, we'll even finish probably before that. Collecting inputs. So now it's time for us to launch it, to publish it. So when we publish it, the first thing we're going to do when we hit the send button up there, you may want to collect usernames. That is not anonymous anymore. Send via email, so you can put email lists, your email list, and send it to those people. Or a link, which is kind of cool, because the link, you give them a link, and I'll show you what this looks like. You give them a link. Anybody who has this link can answer your form, can answer your survey. So you can put that link on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, anywhere, and anybody who gets access to that link can answer your survey. Finally, you can create HTML code from it, and as I said before, embed it in your website. This is what it looks like. It's going to give you a link. I like to check this check mark that says, give me a short. So this is a relatively short link. The original link is pretty long. And I take this, I copy it, and then this is the link to answer this survey. Of course, there's something else I can do with that. What can I do with that?
QR code.
I can do a QR code with it, exactly. This is my real session feedback form that I've created. So this is kind of what it looks like. There is a session code, as I mentioned. One interesting thing is, so you notice that this is an empty field. So I can't ask you to fill in a code because you may forget, you may enter a code that's not exactly what I wanted and so on. So there is an interesting option up here when I go to send that says get a pre-filled link. And so when I click on this, it says just fill whatever you want to fill in this form. So I filled NSA 2017-05-24, today's date, and that is the special code. And then I scroll to the bottom, and I press the send button, the submit button. And at that point, I'm getting a link. This is the link. No option for a short link. And then what do?
QR code.
Create a QR code. And this is the QR code for this form, for this session. Okay? Any questions so far?
Can you embed
In
images?
their way, rather than use that really long one, sometimes they give you the option of giving a description.
Not on this.
Okay.
Not on this. They gave you an option to do a short one on the general, but when you want it pre-filled, there is no option for that. Okay. Actually, if you went to the right, you will see exactly where it actually fills those forms, those fields, different fields. Okay, now we're getting the responses. John.
Can you embed images?
Yes, there is there was a button. Somewhere there on the right, there was a button where you can embed images. Okay, moving on. Analyzing responses. So now we got the responses, and at some point we closed the survey, and now we want to see what we got. So first of all, there is very easy when I go to my survey. By the way, one of the things you'll notice is I have here a palette that I can choose different colors, different color schemes for the survey, or I can use my own imagery. So I'm using my own image up here. Session code, so you can see that at the time I took this image, I had 3 feedbacks, 3 different sessions that I got feedback from, 2 from this one, 5 from this one, 11 from this one. And you can scroll down, and depending on the question, you're going to get pie charts, and you're going to have bar graphs, and you're going to have all kinds of statistics on the survey that you asked. But you're not going to have any analysis. Okay, so every question on its own, you're going to get 60% answered this way, 25% answered that way, 15% answered that way, 0 answered the last. You can get it that way. If you go to individual, okay, before individual, which one am I pressing here? On response, what else can I do with responses? I can download them, I can print them. When it prints them really individually. And what they look like when you press individual or when it prints them, you can see I had 18 responses, so I can flip through them. On each one of them, you can see how it was answered for each one of them. Now, let's click on this thing, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a spreadsheet. Now it's time for us to analyze it. So we create a spreadsheet. This is what the spreadsheet looks like. This is in Google Sheets, or what is it called? Worksheets? Google Sheets. So here's what I have there, and here's how everybody answered every question. Note this one, somebody did not answer questions. Remember, not all my questions were not mandatory. So this is how a survey like this comes across. And there may have been a few answers towards the end, which would be good enough for me. So this is what it looks like. Now, when you go to add-ons, you may, if you want to start running statistics, you may go to add-on and add. In Chrome, everything is an app or an extension. So you can go to the Chrome store, Google store, and or what they call Google Play store, and you can download a statistical package. Really, it only gives you two things: descriptive data and regression analysis. These are the only things. So you can now do some statistics on this, but not enough. If you want to have more, what I do, I just downloaded it and port it into Excel. And in Excel, under data analysis, up here on the right, there is a lot. There is a lot more that you can do. A lot more analysis. And you know, for some of them, you need to have more knowledge of statistics and analysis, data analysis. However, correlation is one of the simplest one. You took 2 of the questions, and you want to see how correlated the answers are. So what is the correlation between, well, this can't be a 1 or 0, between age and the time, the number of hours in the day that you're using social media? The older you are, the more you're using it. I would say probably the right correlation for that kind of question would be something like this. The older you are, the less you use social media. This shows positive correlation, strong positive correlation. You see it's very close to a line. This is somewhat of positive. You can see that it's positive, but not very strong. This is negative correlation, and this means no correlation. Dots are all over the place. Any questions? I know I'm going fast. Okay, this is one of the surveys that I made, and I want to show you how powerful Excel is in generating the reports. So this is the beginning of the survey. Copyright, title, the code. This is the code where I'm saying don't change this. Company size, so I wanted to know what the company size is. How long has your company been in business? What is your role? And I gave you a few options and so on. So I started with demographics. Then there were 72 questions in that survey. And after the 72 questions, so every company that I work with, I have them fill this survey, and I ask them to do at least 10 of them. Here's the thing. It goes straight into, I give them a link, a pre-filled link with a code for their company. It goes straight into that spreadsheet that I have on Google. And then these are what the survey questions. This is the matrix that I told you about. So you got the questions, and all of them have the same scale. This is what it looks like. This time it's already in Excel. So I got it in Excel. The power of Excel. Then I did analysis. So for every question, There were positive questions, there were negative questions. So this one has only positive questions. Positive questions means that a higher score is going to be for strongly agree, a lower score for strongly disagree. Whereas a negative question, a higher score is going to be to strongly disagree. So if I ask you, do you think that you don't have, or this is going to be a statement, I don't have enough autonomy in my company, strongly disagree would actually be a positive thing, okay? Then I summarize them, I do the statistics. This is one other tab that I have over there. And there is a tab there where I actually put all the charts and all the text and everything there and logos and so on. And at the end, all I do is just print it. And it looks like this. This is actually what I created. This is a printout from Excel. Yes, this one. I sent you. When did I give you this? Oh, you downloaded this one. Okay. This is Excel. I did a diversity score, for example, to know. See, these are the demographic questions. So, employed with a company more than 10 years, less than 1 year, your age, organization level, education, functional area, gender. And I created an index, a metric that said how diverse is the group of respondents. And I want this number to be as high as possible. Gray, 59, we're good. If we had 20 something, not so great. Total number of participants that participate in that survey was 45. Different answers, what's the overall score, what's the reference, what's the average of all the companies that I had in your industry, and so on. This came straight out of Excel. The only area that I changed to create a specific report for a company, this is actually a specific report for a company, is what's in blue. In blue, I just entered text and analysis to kind of give a few pointers on what do I see here when I look at this. So this is what it looks like when it came out of Excel.
So what you did in Excel was, all the stuff's on each tab. You took one tab and just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste to get it all on one tab. No?
Nothing. All I did was I copied what I had in Google Sheets, that spreadsheet. I copied it into Excel. Everything else was already in place in my Excel spreadsheet. Everything was in place. All the analysis, including the formatting pages, they were already in place. Once the new data was in there, that was it.
But you had initially set up that template.
Yes. That took about 4 days
Yeah.
to set up.
Pretty
Yes.
sophisticated.
And now
Yes.
the new one comes in, he just pulls it.
That's right. But what happens now is really that what I get is I go to another company, I give them the form, the survey, the link. It's a pre-filled link, so the code is already there. And I tell them, get at least 10 employees to answer. And they answer, and in that case, I think I had, 45 or 54 employees that entered that in that company, and so on. Any questions? You're not going to come out of this experts, but you're going to know what the options are, what your capabilities are. Second squirrel, I asked Linda if she's going to be here, Linda Thomas, if she's going to be here. Linda Thomas is sick, and I told her I'm going to talk about her behind her back. And she still said she's sick, so I talked to her today. Actually, I think that made her more sick than before. Yes, that's... But I told her what would be the context. So I had to find somebody I was not directly connected to on LinkedIn. This is a little trick for us people, speakers who are trying to get a client. And you find a client. I mean, finding someone on LinkedIn is relatively easy, right? How do you get their email address? Money? Pay for email?
Well, isn't there an option for where you can upgrade your account?
Premium allows you to send emails.
Right.
They don't answer emails. You really want to send an email, not an email. By the way, many people would just put another email address there. Your Gmail that you're not checking, or your Yahoo that you're not checking or checking rarely. You want to know their business email address, right? How do you find it? So this is Linda. And as you can see, by the way, after I did that, I did send her an invite, and now we're best buddies, so we're in first. But we were second at that time when we did that. We were second. I used my Explorer. The reason I used my Explorer or Edge, Microsoft Edge, was because my Chrome was already equipped with something, with a secret weapon. Now that Linda and I are on first connection basis, down here you can see her email address. But she needs to accept my friend request. It's not really a friend request, it's a professional request to connect. She needs to accept it. What if she doesn't? So John, I'm sending you a request and you don't want to connect with me, or you just go, I don't know who this person is, and it doesn't matter what I put in the text of the invitation for you to connect, you still, you're going to get to it at some point. But I want to send you an email. Well, here's an interesting thing. It's called Hunter. It's an app or extension. Anybody know Hunter? Crofton doesn't know Hunter.
Wow.
Okay, yes.
Sandy doesn't know it?
Blew my mind. So here's what I have on Chrome. If I have that app, that extension that's called Hunter, on Chrome, there is another button that shows up. On LinkedIn, there is another button. I'm still 2 degrees from Melinda, but I press Hunter, and Hunter said there's a 98% probability confidence that this is her email address, without her accepting a request from me to be a connection.
This is just in LinkedIn.
Interesting.
Just in LinkedIn.
Wow.
Yes.
You can
So-
stalk.
So LinkedIn is a great tool to find the person because it's a great search tool, professional search tool, but you get there and you're going to send a connection request, and that person is either not going to see that connection request because they have a Yahoo address or something that they don't check very often, or they will ignore you. I know I ignore a lot of requests that I get from people that I don't know who they are. I don't know why they want to connect with me. I have 4,000 people connected to me. I don't need another one just to have another one. But this is how you actually get
Are
it.
they pulling that from LinkedIn? Because
They do search. They search for that person on the internet, and they look at LinkedIn. So the fact that they even came up with this website, with this domain, was because somewhere down there they saw that that's their name of her company, and they said, oh, that increases the probability that this is the email address. And they look all around the internet to find correlations to Linda Thomas.
it's not the number she gave LinkedIn.
No, that may not be the email address that she entered here.
Why
Does
not
it
just
work
use
for other
LinkedIn?
applications as well?
Is what?
Other applications, does it work on it?
As far as I know, only with LinkedIn.
Why not just use Google? Like if you've got Linda Thomas and you know the name of her company.
You can try. There are times it's hard. Sometimes it's a needle in a haystack. The question is, are you going to do the work, or are you going to press a button and let somebody else do the work
The
for
nice
you?
thing is you can do it without ever leaving LinkedIn. You don't have to.
Yeah. You got on Chrome, you got this extra button. This extra button shows up.
And it's only on Chrome. You have to be on Chrome and bring
Only
in
on Chrome.
LinkedIn from Chrome.
Yes.
Is that the secret?
Yes.
And there's a way to export all of your LinkedIn connections with personal information.
Yes, but only if those are the ones that are one-to-one with you. Those are the ones who are first, not second. Because second, they're not in your network.
That's true.
Yes. So in fact, when you know that LinkedIn was actually acquired now by Microsoft, and right before the acquisition, I knew the date of the acquisition. Right before that, I downloaded everything. Every now and then, I back it up. I download everything, and just because I didn't know if Microsoft all of a sudden are going to say we're not going to let you see the email address. But they still do. You still can do the export of the entire database. But this is for not the people that you're connected to. This is for those who you're not connected to. Okay? With that, any questions?
Can I get back to my original question?
Yes, what was your original
Well,
question?
If it doesn't apply to everybody else, you and I can talk offline if that's okay.
If what?
You and I can talk offline if it doesn't apply to others. I want to do a one-on-one survey. Let's
Yes.
say Sandy's the CEO of a 300-person company,
Mhm.
and I approach her however I approach her. about doing a management team evaluation or health check or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
I want her to do a survey of about 5 minutes, or let's say less than 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want her to do is I want her to answer some questions like, and this is just a sample, do we have the right people in place? Are they doing the right things? Are they doing those things right? Is productivity at the level I want? Is our management team good at removing obstacles, blah, blah, blah. Now I get that feedback, and that stimulates a 20-minute phone call, 15 to 20-minute phone call to where I talk to her about it.
Mhm.
If there's enough interest, then we're going to schedule a meeting and do a diagnostic meeting to help her
Right.
develop her management team.
Mhm.
So I'm not looking to populate it. I'm not, I want her to answer it. I want to get the response, and then her and I are going to talk about the way she answered the questions. Is that-
Okay. Yeah, remember that you can. I don't know how far back I need to go, but let me go back just to show you. I went too fast. Okay, send for right here. You can see that I can send via email without generating a link. You can send her via email. She's the only one who's going to receive it. There is no link. She goes straight to this survey. You get that survey answered. You know you got it back from her because she's the only person you send it to. Nobody can get access to that survey. What you would do if you want more people is actually get the link and send them the link. And now everybody with this link can answer. But for what you wanted, that's send an email,
Yeah, and
not
that
a
may be a
link.
second level. I haven't gotten that far yet, but that
Yeah.
may be a second level. Then if she agrees that we're going to do business, then I could survey her management team.
She doesn't seem interested, by the way.
No, I've already noted that.
Sandy not
that my
interested.
message
Send
hasn't
somebody.
been compelling enough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I know I breezed through this. We have another session here today. Yes, sir. Officer.
You are very technical savvy here. So, are you doing
I am.
a lot on Google? Like, I haven't done anything. I've got a Google email, and I don't remember how to log in. I never use it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So you're up on that thing. So you're using that. Is there other tools that you're using
So-
in your business consistently?
Very good question. That's an excellent question. And I'll tell you what, I started using Google and then started using Chrome. I fell in love with this. I swear by it. This laptop here is a Chromebook. This is a Chromebook. You will notice the Chrome logo on it. It's a Chromebook. I decided to go wild, spend like nobody's business. I spent the maximum I can. So spent like $300 on a laptop because you can get them for $150 or less. Chromebook. All this thing does is it connects to the internet and it connects to your Google Chrome, to your account when you sign in.
You don't have data on the computer. It's all
There is some data here. You can store some, but everything is in the cloud. Well, here's an interesting thing. Once I log in, it remembers all my passwords to all the different websites and so on with one password, one main password. Now you can log into everything else that you'd like. Google has, now I'm not a salesperson for Google. I have absolutely no vested interest in Google one way or another. But you have all kinds of tools, whether it's Pages, Google Docs, which is documents, Google Sheets, which is the worksheets, Google Slides, is it called, or something, presentations for presentations, so you create that. Forms, this is what we went through today. Here's one of the coolest tools. When I ran my campaign for a PISD, I didn't want to leave my cell phone number with people. You know, I didn't want to advertise my cell phone number. There's something called Google Voice. Google Voice gives you a telephone number. So 972-332-1490. I have an answering device here, over there. Doesn't cost me anything. By the way, nothing here costs you anything. There is no option to pay for stuff in this. So I use Google Voice. That telephone number, I actually define that between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., any call to my Google Voice number would immediately go to my cell phone, and in my cell phone, I will see the caller ID of the person who called, not the Google Voice number. After 5 p.m. until 9 a.m. the following day, it will take a message. What else? There are all kinds of applications that you have here.
So you actually do. I was wondering about that Google Voice. You use it and you love
Oh,
it.
yes.
Not only that, with the Chromebook, You don't have to worry about updates.
Yeah, it updates itself. There is no.
It is Android, so it's not secure, but they constantly do the upgrades
Yep.
and put the patches in there, so you're not using a version, an Android.
There is no old version. You always have the updated. Here's an interesting thing. If this laptop broke now, I didn't lose anything.
Right.
It's all over there.
So
I
this
didn't lose anything.
presentation's in the cloud right now?
Yeah.
What do you
Oh,
do?
no, I'm sorry. This presentation is actually on this USB drive.
Oh, okay.
But I can put it on the cloud. I just didn't want to use
I don't
internet
like
to
do
connect.
that just in case you don't get a good connection, so.
Yep.
I always like to have it all right on the computer. Do
I
you-
understand.
Does anyone use Infusionsoft?
Yes,
I
like it or
don't.
we're experts.
Who's an expert? You? I'll talk to you, okay.
We still have time before 8. Can you do that in 12 minutes? Any other questions about surveys or squirrels or Linda Thomas?
How do we get more experts at, I've just finished my
You just got
master's
as
degree.
big as expert as
How
you
do
do.
we get better at research? Like,
Better at research. What do you
yes,
mean?
you're a research expert. So, in terms of researching topics, where are you getting, like, actually I found out today that if we live in Plano,
Yep.
we can access the research just by having a library card.
Yes.
Did not know
Yep.
that. I was thinking, I didn't want to lose my research capability from the university, but library card, you can log
That's
in
right.
and get it. So.
Not all the databases that you get access at the university, but quite a few of them, yes. But I'm not sure that I.
Let me just change questions. Let's get to a real important one.
Yes.
Where did your daughter do gymnastics at?
Where did she do gymnastics? Infinite Bounds in Plano.
Oh, Infinite Bounds.
Yes.
Oh.
But let's go back to your question. What was? Help me understand.
Research.
How do you do research?
Oh, yeah, I guess I
Let's separate. There's primary research and secondary research. Secondary research is what you're talking about. You go to the library and you find research that was done by somebody else as primary research. They did that as primary. Primary is when you actually create the research.
You're,
Yes.
Chris, what Mike asked, I saw a demo by a VP of Microsoft talking about what you can instantly access with public databases. And the key was to know how to access it. And it was phenomenal. He said, let's just say we wanted to look at crime in the United States.
Mhm.
And all these graphs started popping up. And he said, let's say we wanted to look at Texas. Okay, boom. So now Dallas. And by type of crime. And here's which one.
Or
is
Plano.
popular.
There's no crime in Plano.
And so he was just showing you the power of
Mhm.
the Microsoft tools when you gain access to a public database. And
Yep.
he said, he said, ask me any question. And
One of the buzzwords today in technology is big data. And the thing is that there is a lot of data. There's a lot of data available. You need to know where it is and how to get access to it. But once you do, and then you start correlating it, you correlate that data with that data, and you start finding some very interesting things. But you have to be smart in how you ask the questions and how you correlate that so you don't skew yourself off.
Also, if you want juried research, scholar.google.com
Yeah.
will give you access to 1 million scientific type journals. So, if you want a psychology quote or like my field neuroscience, I review all the juried articles that have been published by the PhDs. And scholar.google.com will give you at least access to the abstract so that then you can go in with a
Yeah.
library card and
Yeah, that's when you go into Google. So I'm not going to go back all the way because this is like the first slide that I had on Google Forms where I showed you there is more. And if you click on the more, beyond forms, there is more things, and you will see there's scholars, there's images, there's a lot of things. Scholar is giving you scholarly articles. But in many cases, as Sandy said, you just get the abstract. At least you know where it is. And then maybe through the library you do have access to that or not. But Crofton, you had a question in the back.
I think I had a comment. I was wondering if you had not written a book about doing research. You've written so many books.
No, I did not write a book about research, but I learned
Great.
research. What?
That'll be number 8.
I'm taking a rest now. I got two books out this year. I'm good for a year. Any other questions? I thank you very much. I hope this was not too condensed. Slides are going to be available. I'm going to put that on our Facebook, and if on our Facebook group, North Texas, NSA North Texas, if you somehow can't get it, just let me know and I'll send it directly to you. One thing I'm going to ask you, if you do have a scanner, please scan this code and give me feedback on this session. Okay? With that, back, here's Johnny.
Here's